morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time is where you are around the world on this international satellite link-up. From Liubavitch headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, 770 Eastern Parkway, I'm Les Nierenberg from Toronto, and I'm with Shmuel Kaplan of Baltimore. What's this about?
Well, Lag BaOmer is a special day in the calendar, the Jewish calendar. Throughout the period between Passover and the festival of Shavuos, of Tabernacles, of Shavuos, the giving of the Torah, we have a series of 49 days, and this is the 33rd day.
I believe the Rebbe is coming on now. Am I right? Here's the Rebbe.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe, the world leader of Jewry, is about to make his appearance. He will address the children assembled here personally. It is maybe very important to note that this is a celebration for children. The children are the VIPs of this parade. They're the ones out front. They're the ones who will be marching. And they're the ones who produced all of the floats which you will see. All of this has been done by children, by students. It is not the work of outside professionals, because their involvement is essential for their understanding the meaning of the day and the meaning of Torah knowledge and Torah activism.
And this is the third annual satellite broadcast of the Loch Parade, which happens here at 770 Eastern Parkway. This is the world headquarters of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And several thousand people are gathered here, as are probably thousands more, watching via satellite at home on their TVs.
Well, in addition to those in the United States, there are broadcasts in Moscow, in England, in Paris, in Italy, in Argentina, Brazil, Melbourne, and of course Israel. In all of these countries, they're tuned in to participate in the festivities going on here this morning.
I had the pleasure of being part of this celebration 3 years ago, and it was really quite marvelous and very thrilling to me to be involved in it, and with you too.
Well, we're back again. If it's good ones, we do it again.
This is a fun day, and I think we're all going to have a lot of fun today. Is this a kind of family type of thing? And here he comes now.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe has just made his entrance.
We proceed now with the recitation of the 12 sugim.
There are 12.
Everybody kindly sit down, and adults don't block the children.
There are 12 verses of the Torah which the Lubavitcher Rebbe has suggested are fundamental to a child's understanding of Judaism, what Judaism is about, from various sources, and these will be recited by children from around the world.
This is from the Sora Matsuaf of Paris, France. The school is the...
Here they are, the two little kindala who are going to recite the first pasuk.
The first verse that they will be reciting is Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe Morosha Kehilas Yaakov, from the Bible. The Torah which Moses commanded us is an inheritance to all the house of Jacob.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake on the kid's name. That was Sora Matusov. That was her name. That's the first girl. Matusov.
From Paris.
And Dalia Zabihi.
Merci beaucoup. Hold your applause for the end.
That was wonderful.
Shema Yisrael will now be recited by Kayla Meadow from the Sea Breeze Jewish Center, one of the 10 winners of Tzivos Hashem contest.
The Shema Yisrael is the basic Jewish creed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. The Chol Dor V'Dor will now be recited by Hannah Grossberger of the Beis Yaakov of Brooklyn, an outstanding student of Beis Yaakov.
This verse is in reference to the events of the Exodus from Egypt. B'chol dor v'dor, and each and every generation, everyone is obligated to imagine and envision themselves actually going out of Egypt, so that the Exodus of Egypt is a personal experience.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. Hey, kids out there, a little louder. I'd like to hear a little bit of a louder resounding voices from you kids out there. Kol Yisrael will now be recited by Sarah Gavenda of the Beis Rivka schools, formerly Rabbi Shimon Hatz's Hebrew school in Park Slope, went to Camp Pomona and decided to go to Beis Rivka. This is her first year.
She's reciting Kol Yisrael Yesh Lahem Chelik La'olam Haba. Every single Jew has a portion in the world to come, irrespective of their individual religious attainments. The mere fact that they stand out as Jews and are proud Jews gives them a part in the world to come.
That was terrific for a kid for the first time at Beis Rivka. You're doing great.
Oh, we should remember these children are repeating it, the verses in Hebrew.
That's right.
We're just going to have to assume that they know the English. The verse now being recited by Miriam Greenberg from Cheder Lubavitch in Morristown. Tikarev Elecha Hadava Ma'od. This observance of all of the commandments is accessible and attainable by each and every person. That also is a verse from the Bible. A verse now being recited by Moshe Levy from San Diego, California, is a verse from the classic Hasidic text, the Tanya, which emphasizes that God stands above each and every individual and scrutinizes his heart to see whether he is serving God appropriately.
Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Okay, Bereshis will now be recited by
Well, a child didn't take the cue.
Mark.
Need some more experience with this, I guess.
He's got spirit, though. He's great.
Bereshis will now be recited by Elimelech Lukowski, a star student of the Mostos Daycare Center.
It's one of the local daycare centers here in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, from where this broadcast originates. Bereshis, Bara Elokim, Es HaShamayim Ve'es HaOretz. This is the first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth.
Vishinantam will now be recited by Marina German and Tanya Valakitin from the Russian division of the Release Time program. Vishinantam.
These two girls are both immigrants from the Soviet Union and are already demonstrating that they have managed to catch up in their Jewish studies to where the other children in the United States are. So I think it's very gratifying. It's not only a physical freedom, but also a religious freedom that they've attained. They are reciting a verse in the Bible, Vishinantam levanecha, you shall teach it to your children. The commandment that we are obligated to teach our children about the Torah.
Yogaiti will now be recited by Menachem Mendel Elishevitz from the United Lubavitch Yeshivas, the winner of the Sefer HaMitzvahs contest, which was in the Lubavitch Yeshiva.
Yogaiti!
This verse, coming from Mendel Elishevitz of the Lubavitch Yeshiva in Brooklyn, is a verse from the Mishnah, the part of the Talmud, the great religious commentary on the Bible, in which it says, Yogaiti u'motzasi, someone who says that I have endeavored but have not found, do not believe him. If he says I found, have not endeavored, do not believe him either. Only if one says I worked, I toiled, and I accomplished, that's the one you have to believe. There's no accomplishment without effort.
Just started the Hebrew school in the Chabad Community Hebrew School of Highland Park, Illinois.
this verse, one of the most important of the Bible, of the Torah, which Rabbi Akiva, one of the individuals of this day, Rabbi Akiva is the teacher of the many students that passed away on this prior to this day, as we will explain a bit later on. And he's set up as a cardinal principle, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, from Leviticus in the Bible. You shall love your fellow as yourself. And he emphasized that klal godel b'Torah, this is a major principle of the Torah.
And this young man from Kansas City?
Well, catching up is Levi Yitzchak HaKohen Friedman from Kansas City, Missouri. He is reciting a verse from the Tanya, which emphasizes that the entire purpose of God's creation is to make for him, for God, a dwelling place here in this world, when we bring a holiness and a spirituality into all of the mundane things of the world.
This is Menachem Mendel Rice's.
He is from Yesod.
Well, he's a champion. Well, that's just a name. What he is a champion. He comes from Tzfat, Israel, and there he was a Tzivos Hashem, one of the champions in accomplishment for the youngsters in their voluntary efforts, and he was brought here for this specific purpose as a prize. The verse that he is repeating is also from the Tanya, that each and every Jew and every person should rejoice in the responsibility and direction that God gave him to serve God in this world. Since God chooses us as individuals, it really highlights the value of each individual person to God.
From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Menachem Mendel Munitz is this young fella.
Well, what this young fellow is doing with such enthusiasm is expressing on behalf of the children and also the crowd a blessing to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for continued good health. This year we have been celebrating the 40th year of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's leadership. He assumed the leadership of the movement in 1950, and this is 40 years since. We also recently celebrated the Rebbe's 88th birthday. And so on behalf of all assembled, I guess, and all of those around the world that are watching us at this broadcast this morning, it's a wish to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for many years of health and nachas and success in all of his efforts to promote Judaism and continue the Jewish tradition around the world.
And these young people are all members of the Tzivos Hashem, which is the Army of Hashem, a kind of, would you say, Boy Scout, Hasidic Boy Scout?
Yeah, something of that nature.
Yeah.
It's not Hasidic, no, quite the contrary. It is a youth group devoted to children around the world, and it gives them an opportunity to participate in various events and also to encourage them to study and to practice in their own homes. There are contests, they win prizes for things that they do.
And their theme song is, we want Mashiach now, we want the Messiah now.
Their efforts are directed towards a goal, and the goal is to bring the Messiah. Every bit of holiness, every mitzvah that is done specifically by a child is one step closer to that eventual coming of the Messiah, which we all look forward to. As you can see out in the crowd, most of the attendees are children. In fact, the places of honor and the seats provided are all for the children. This is a way of giving the children an extra boost in their pride and being Jewish.
Okay, let's give a round of applause to those 13 wonderful kids who did such a beautiful job. I have more Jewish over here than I should have. Okay, everybody, your attention to the Rebbe's Ogersensang, who will now speak to us.
And the Rebbe will address the children.
And I will try
to doing a simultaneous
a
translation of the Rebbe's address. The Rebbe will speak without notes and will draw freely from all sources of Judaism, comments from the Talmud, from the Midrash, from the Torah, from the Bible. This day of Lag BaOmer is known as a day of rejoicing of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He was one of the most prominent of the sages of the Talmud. We find his comments and opinions throughout the Talmud. Amongst them are some that have specific importance for this day of Lag BaOmer, which is tied to the counting of the Omer. This period of counting reflects the unity of the Jewish people, as the Jewish people symbolize the golden candelabra, as the prophet describes it. Although the actual golden candelabra was in the tabernacle and subsequently in the first and second temples, and soon we look forward to the reality of that menorah. At the time of our redemption, it will once again be a physical golden menorah candelabra in the temple which God will form after the coming of the Messiah. And this will then further reflect the unity amongst all of the Jews, even though they are divided in their service to God in the 7 branches of the candelabra. The service of God, which is to be done with all of our heart, as mentioned in the Bible, and the heart reflects the 7 emotions which motivate a person to action, and this is the meaning and the symbol of the 7 branches of the candelabra. Even though, in fact, each individual reflects all 7 attributes and branches of the candelabra. However, there is a primary one, which is the emphasis of each individual, as we find by our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that they served God as in total commitment. Nevertheless, each one of the patriarchs was unique in his service, whether for Abraham, the first of the patriarchs, Ahavat Hashem, the love of God, Isaac, second of the patriots, the awe of God, and Jacob, the third of the patriarchs. Jacob, being the third, combines the two in beauty, the attribute of beauty, because it includes both of the 2 attributes of Abraham and Isaac, of love and awe of God. This is then also an instruction for Jewish children, since this day, Lag BaOmer, is associated with Jewish children by tradition. As in this kind of event is reflected the words of the Zohar, the book of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, in which he emphasizes that this book, the book of Zohar, the Kabbalistic work, book of splendor, will help bring the Jewish people out of exile into the future redemption with mercy, without any tribulations, but rather in rejoicing and gladness of heart. So he explains in the book of Zohar that this day of Lag BaOmer is associated with the verse of the Psalms, Matov Manoim Sheves Achim Gam Yochad, how beauty and pleasant is the sitting of brothers together, which this refers to every Jew and all Jews that are called Achim, brothers, because they are brothers in the fulfillment of the injunction of Rabbi Akiva, who was the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Seine das genommen geworden, Trumas mit dem, so wie man nimmt das Truma von der ganzen Krieg, von der ganzen, also es ist Kamus von Tavur, und mit Kleibtes und mit Machris, und man hebt zu, wo das erklärt der Abteilchen Truma, wo das ist verbunden mit Anweisung zu jüdischen Kindern, also darf man tun, alles was hängt ab von See.
An instruction which Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gave for children is the concept of separation and elevation in a silo of grain, that you go through the grains and find each and every one of them and find an individual way of reaching that child. In the education of the children, we emphasize both aspects, the positive fulfillment of commandments and traditions, as well as the avoidance of those prohibitions or negative traits, so that this is built on the love that Abraham demonstrated, particularly those acts of charitable kindness that a child or a Jew engages in, an expression of the love for fellow Jews and for all of mankind, even those areas where charity is given for others outside of the Jewish faith. It is an expression of the kindness and love that Abraham demonstrated. And this form is a proper service to God, because it is His wish that each individual who is dependent on a second person should be helped by each and every Jew, which this demonstrates a greater unity throughout the world. Alle Völker von der Welt haben denselben Anführer und denselben Bären, denselben Beschaffer. That all peoples around the world have one single God and leader, and He is the Creator who continuously, every moment, recreates the world. Every moment and every hour. Whether it is a weekday, and certainly on a holy day, certainly on a day like today, as well as the holiday of Shavuos, which we are counting towards, and the holiday of Passover, from which we began the counting immediately after the first day of the holiday. As in der ganzen Welt soll sein Nicker bis bemeisse Befehl. The function of all of our efforts is that it should be felt and recognized in the world, all of the oneness of God by the demonstration of the unity amongst the people. Particularly if one encounters an individual who has a negative trait, out of our love and concern for him, we should look for a way to assist him and to free him from an unnecessary or unwanted trait. This is an instruction to all peoples around the world, that there has to be this kind of charity in a physical and practical sense.
tut man alles, was man kann, soll nicht haben, soll nicht fällen. Allah's Kammer, jeden fällt in Ruchnis.
The same must then apply if we extend ourselves to someone who is a friend of ours, to help and assist him in material things that he needs, and certainly it should be so in a spiritual sense, that if someone lacks something in a spiritual context, then one should share from what God has given him with a bountiful hand, because God gives all mankind, both Jew and non-Jew. As we emphasize in the grace after meals, that God sustains everybody, all of creation, and He does it with kindness and mercy. We can therefore understand how critical this aspect of charity in the material and spiritual sense is in our service to God. Ultimately, we will achieve a sense of brotherhood, because the other individual will also acquire the good attributes and traits that we extend to them as an example.
Was jeder Eid und der Welt und spielen in der ganzen Welt. Aber die Welt soll alles gehen mit Dargo le Dargo. Von ein Stufe in den Lebenschten zu noch eine höhere Stufe.
This brings the people to service of God in a form of movement, of constantly moving with a higher and higher level of service of God. So that ultimately, in all actions that take place throughout the world, it will be recognized that they are being done by individuals who were created by God, which is the ultimate place where all kindness and mercy comes from. It is then obvious that the world around us cannot interfere with this kind of mission which we have undertaken and been given by God. There are those who think that the world somehow can interfere because of the many things that there are in the world, but the reality is that since it's all created by God, then it is up to us to utilize all of the things in the world to achieve the desired result.
Was der Mocker hat viel Ton mit allen Unionen in der Welt, mit allen Umis in der Welt, sei mit Menschen und auch viele
This will make obvious the way God conducts Himself with all of the world, with all of people, and with all of His creations.
Als Bossi, glaube ich, war das doch anheben, der Ossi Teke von Miliad Mammers. Durch Druf, was mit Mäßig sein, fühlen sich wie der Rebester will. In der Welt wird die Welt noch schneller zukommen zu dem Zustand.
Conduct, as we have just mentioned, is instrumental in bringing about the coming of the Messiah, and the promise that the prophet says that the wolf will lie down with the lion, with the sheep. And as part of that promise, as we mentioned in our prayers, our eyes should see the return of God to Zion.
Wie sichert in den Tfilis von Yom Kippurim, als sagt man doch, das wird sein,
this is a prayer which we say at all times, weekday and holidays. And we emphasize that at that time, God would be one throughout the world, and it will not be necessary to use any negative means, but rather only in a positive sense, by God giving with His holy, open and outstretched hand goodness and prosperity, based on the recognition that essentially it is a good world that was created by God, who is the source of all goodness. Goodness and kindness both for humankind as well as the animal kingdom and all of the world. Wird man beruhigt, wie bald das wird angeführt von den Nebelsten, this can give us the sense of tranquility, since the world is being conducted by God Himself. So that regardless of what has come before, any insecurities or negative things, since we recognize that since God is the one who is in control of all matters in the world, it will be done in a positive sense. And even those who may have contemplated negative things will be overwhelmed by the recognition of God, which therefore will dissolve any other intention and only bring about goodness and kindness in the world. This is the hope and the objective for the coming of the Messiah, that it should be revealed in the entire world, as emphasized in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, that it all should be recognized the honor of God and glory of God throughout the world. The honor of God is at its ultimate when we honor God because of the kindness and goodness that He has bestowed upon us, in a form which we can readily recognize with our own physical eyes, true goodness and pleasure from our children and grandchildren and families around us. Particularly disregarding those who believe that there is some kind of gap between the younger people and older people, but the Torah rejects this, because the Torah says that everyone together, grandparents and grandchildren, are unified in one conduct as one family, both in the Jewish community as well as in the world at large.
Als in mehreren Medinas was bis nicht gar nicht klein, seien sie gestanden in
bring about the reversal of negative events that have happened in the previous generation and even in our own generation, where there were governments that controlled their people with ruthlessness, and we have seen the way it all has been changed, and now the approach of governments to their children, to their youngsters and the population is one out of love and respect for the individuals, without requiring any kind of fear being imposed on a child in his education, but rather the expression of a love which is a much more powerful educational tool.
ובמיוחד verbunden mit Lag Bäumer wie der Mond friert, das verbindet man mit Kindern und nicht Kinder, wie sie bleiben stehen auf demselben Ort.
All of these actions, both amongst the children and the adults that are parading here, reflects the quality of education. They should be moving forwards to the ultimate achievement of the world to come.
Und sie seien sich noch nicht gehabt in Nisjenis und einmal
certainly for children who have not yet had the tribulations and the problems that adults have had throughout their lives, but children, those particularly before coming of age of bar bat mitzvah,
die Zeit, wenn Kinder werden schon erwachsen, sehr sicher, bis wann nicht, dass sie verstehen, schon allein.
Prior to the time in which a child becomes mature enough to be able to understand and make the choice by himself, when the education is done in a proper way, it creates a greater sense of unity and service of God with joy and gladness.
Was in der
this is reflected in this kind of parade and march. Even though it is primarily Jewish children that are parading here, but those leading the parade are military individuals, military bands, which encompass and include in them both Jew and non-Jew. They are the ones that lead the parade to ensure that the parade is done in a proper way and in a peaceful way, so that there isn't even a thought of anything negative, even with a good weather.
Wodurch spiegelt Tov, was Diva seine sich mistate in der Tahluche.
Which this then is reflected in those who are marching and those that are leading the march. Particularly when it is being, the parade is being led with rejoicing and with song, which gives a spirit to the children and therefore adds the spirit and joyous dimension to the adults and those that are around, whether it is Jewish or non-Jewish, which this is a particular feature and nature of children to add joy to the adults. As we see that it is always easier to achieve a unity amongst people when there is a joy that pervades the group. Even more so when this is associated with children, the education of children who are in the process of developing their spiritual lives.
Mit demselben Tachlis, auf Obhitten, also sein Scholem und Nave Wachwa und Scholem Vereis, wie gerät mehrere Mal, wo die alle Unionen beheilen zu noch mehr, also sein der Tachlis auf Lemus, in Matei und Neu, Sheve Sachin, Gam Yochad,
the dictum of how wonderful it is when brothers sit together and when this spirit permeates all of the nations of the world, that they acquire the same kind of unity because they're all in service of one God in one world, in a way of peace and friendship. This brings even closer the objective and purpose of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, whose entire life was devoted to the study of Torah. And through the study of Torah to bring peace throughout the world.
wo das ist die Kavone von dem Zusammenkommen sagt.
Similarly is the purpose and intention of this get-together to strengthen all of the actions and activities which bring about true peace in not only a spiritual context but also in the material world, and the growth of the activity and divine presence in the world. With the emphasis this morning of the children, where it's very clear the growth in children. Often within adults we do not see, we fail to measure the development and growth, whereas with children it's very clear, you see their growth, and the same applies to the spiritual realm, that it's very clear to see the development and growth, spiritual growth of children through their education. Brings about literally the fulfillment of the promise for the redemption, which then, as we mentioned from the prophecy, even wild animals will lie in peace, because it will bring, there will be a complete and perfect peace. And God will be recognized as God over the world, King over the entire world, over each individual that is in the world, which will bring about the harmony and peace amongst people. Which this is a focus of those who are involved in the study of Torah. And Maimonides emphasizes that the whole purpose of the study of Torah and observance of the commandments, and as well as the fulfillment of the commandments of the seven basic Noahide commandments for all of mankind, which this brings about peace. Its function is to bring peace in order to bring about speedily in our time, with the greatest of speed, the condition in the world where there will only be holiness and purity. Because anything of a negative sense will be eradicated from the world. So the world will remain a pure world which is exclusively devoted to the service of God, without any problems or interruption or interference. As we just mentioned it in the prayers today, as we do every day, that there will be peace brought upon, peace, blessing, and goodness, particularly on this day of بعומر, which was mentioned, is associated with harmony amongst people, both amongst human beings and even in the animal kingdom at large. But primarily, when each one of us, each one of the people who are tuned in and hear these words, whichever language it may be, we don't have to wait until it's seen in a book, but they can hear it in their own language, that this prayer should be fulfilled, which we just recently said. Those that prayed in a community in the synagogue, or those that prayed as individuals, both said the same prayer. Place peace, goodness, and blessing throughout the world. And this should be throughout the entire world, in all creations of the world, so that the world will no longer be unstable, but rather a stable, peaceful, and harmony in all aspects of the creations in the universe, and there will be the true peace. Which peace also has the inference of completeness, which will bring the coming of the Messiah, as we mentioned before, the request in our prayers that the seed of King David should speedily sprout forth. And when the term speedily is used, it means immediately, not for another day, but that day when the prayer is being said, even before the subsequent afternoon prayer begins. But fundamentally, that it should be soon. Immediately we should see the ultimate redemption for the entire world in whichever language it is, but it should be factually so, and tangibly here as we are in this world, living and strong, so that we can look, God has brought us to this time in health and strength, so that we can thank God for the final kindness that He has done for us, that it should immediately prior to the coming of the Messiah. All this should be in an obvious way. So that we can see it's not merely a goodness and a harmony, but one that is consistent with this day of Lag BaOmer. The meaning of how good means it's a wonder. We stand in amazement, how is it possible to have such goodness? But this will eventually come for everybody together for the entire world. And from this day of Lag BaOmer, we should go immediately, that it should be tangibly, immediately, the coming of the ultimate redemption, when we all go together, those that are here, and those that are throughout the world, all of the nations. As the prophet tells us that all of the nations shall be drawn to the Messiah. All of the nations will go to Israel, and there to the rebuilt temple, which will be a house of prayer for all of the nations. Primarily, it should be instantly now. That is the conclusion of the introductory remarks that the Lubavitcher Rebbe has said. Just to
speak about over there where there are many things of the
I noticed that the Rebbe made mention, Rabbi, of the massive changes that are happening right now in Europe and around the world.
Very much so. The Rebbe emphasized the concept of peace. This is a day in which Reb Shimon Bar Yochai emphasized, who is the one we're celebrating. It's his passing and the revealing of his teachings, and he focused on the verse of Sheves Achim Gam Yochad, how beautiful it is when brothers dwell together. And the Rebbe said brothers in a literal sense, brothers as a family, brothers as a community, but also brothers as all of mankind, the way we get together in service of God. And he said that all of this unity is accomplished in a way of peace and a way of amazement. And this was a reference, although he didn't say it specifically, to this year, which the Rebbe has declared to be Tov Shin Nun, which is the actual figure for the year, the Hebrew number for the year, Tehei Shnas Nisim, that it should be a year of miracles. And as the Rebbe sort of intimated, there were extraordinary events and miracles, but the change was that we moved from totalitarianism, where there was an emphasis on fear and coercion, to one where there is a new emphasis on love, on mercy, and on charitableness. And the Rebbe felt that that was one additional element in the coming of the Messiah, and that this should spread throughout the world, that even until the Messiah comes, we should be in this kind of world of goodness and kindness.
It occurred to me that after 40 years of effort, that the Chabad movement, of which the Rebbe is the leader, had a lot to do, or may have had some kind of influence on the changes that we're now seeing in Europe and other places.
Maybe just to point out that...
Is that too far-fetched, or is that...
no, absolutely. I mean, after all, I do this for a living. We're talking about the Tov Shin Nun this year. The Hebrew year is not precisely synchronized with the secular year. October is when we began the Hebrew year of Tov Shin Nun, may it be the year of miracles, and that's when the Rebbe proclaimed it. And if you think about the major upheavals in the Eastern European countries, and you see that they really began to pick up speed. Beginning with October, November, that's when everything really took off. So it's, although we may look at it as being 1989 or 1990, it fits very well into the Jewish calendar, that this has been an extraordinary year of miracles. And I think the Rebbe was trying to carry that over, that the events here and the children and the things that they do really make a difference in the world. And that's something extraordinary, which the Rebbe always emphasizes. Although you may be one individual, within this individual, the entire world is reflected. I recall a Hasidic saying that the entire sun is reflected in one drop of water. Water can be just a speck, and the sun is so huge, but yet all of it is reflected in that drop. And I think the Rebbe was driving at the same thing, that within every child, within every Jew, within every human being, the entire goodness of God and His creation is reflected in that individual, if we only bring it out and develop it.
I found 40 years of activity, due to the Rebbe's influence, has brought about a lot of changes, and right now I had the pleasure of working on a documentary a couple of years ago about the Rebbe's achievements, and I believe we have that ready, so we can roll that anytime, guys. You can go for it now. Here it is.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was born on the 11th day of Nisan in 1902 in the Russian-Ukrainian town of Nikolaev. He is the seventh in a dynastic lineage that began in the 18th century, the seventh leader in what has come to be known as the Chabad Lubavitch movement, a movement devoted to the study of Torah and the observance of its mitzvot, the dissemination of the Torah true way of life, and the celebration of Yiddishkeit for all Jews everywhere. 200 years ago, Rabbi Schneerson of Liadi, a disciple of the Maggid of Mezerich, carried the spark of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings into the cities and villages of Russia and Central Europe. He inspired thousands of beleaguered Jews with his message of love, joy, and devotion. He was known affectionately as der Alte Rebbe. His famous works, the Tanya, the basic teachings of Chabad Lubavitch philosophy, and the Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law, gave new meaning to Hasidism and Judaism. 2 years after the passing of der Alte Rebbe, his son and successor, Rabbi Dov Ber, settled in the Russian town of Lubavitch. In Russian, Lubavitch means city of love, a name that aptly describes a philosophy that stresses tolerance, understanding, and love for all fellow Jews. In the third generation of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, Rabbi Menachem Mendel, known as the Tzemach Tzedek, like the Rebbes before and after him, became involved in communal activities, notably in the rescue of Jewish children from forced conscription in the Tsar's army. He is famous for his voluminous halachic responsa and his extensive Hasidic writings and teachings. After the passing of the Tzemach Tzedek in 1866, the work to assist and educate the Jews of Russia and Europe continued with his youngest son, Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel labored for the social and material welfare of his people. He also made significant contributions to Jewish and Hasidic scholarship. Rabbi Shmuel's son, Sholem Dov Ber, was the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was the founder of the Lubavitcher Yeshiva. Because of his intricate elucidations of Hasidic philosophy, Rabbi Sholem Dov Ber was considered the Rambam, the Maimonides of Hasidic thought. The early part of this century was a time of tremendous political upheaval. The Rebbe led an exhaustive campaign against assimilation and exerted tremendous effort in the aid of countless Jews caught up in the Russian Revolution. On the passing of Rabbi Sholem Dov Ber in 1920, his only son, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, became the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe. He had been the personal secretary of his father since the age of 15 and was also director of the yeshiva. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak also had a keen understanding of the new threats of Bolshevism and Nazism. He suffered through a period of imprisonment, miraculously survived a death sentence and the horrors of the early days of World War II. His heroic efforts to help his Jewish brethren under the communist regime in Russia is felt to this very day.
Заходим домой, что мы должны делать на мезуза? Только смотреть?
In my share group, where I teach kids, I teach them the beauty of lighting Shabbos candles. They don't speak English, so I told them in Russian.
Spring 1940. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson and his family arrive in the United States. Their ship is the SS Drottningholm, the last vessel to make the crossing before the U-boat blockade of the Atlantic. In America, there is much to be done. It must become the new Torah center to replace the ruined communities of Europe. America is no different, the Rebbe proclaims. Despite failing health, but with fiery spirit, he devotes himself to establishing Torah institutions in the United States. He pioneers in the establishment of the Jewish day school system, now in existence all over the world. Upon his passing in 1950, the leadership of the now flourishing movement falls upon the shoulders of his illustrious son-in-law. The present Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was born in 1902 on the 11th day of Nisan in the Russian town of Nikolaev. At the age of 5, his family moved to Yekaterinoslav, now called Dnepropetrovsk. His father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, a renowned scholar and Kabbalist, had been appointed chief rabbi of the city. In Yekaterinoslav, the young Menachem Mendel quickly outpaced his tutors. to the extent that they felt they could no longer teach it. By the time of his bar mitzvah, the extraordinary young man was considered a Torah scholar. He spent the rest of his teen years immersed in the study of Torah. In 1923, he met the then Lubavitcher Rebbe, his future father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. Rabbi Menachem Mendel married the Rebbe's second daughter, Chaya Musia, in 1929 in Warsaw. Later he studied at the University of Berlin and the Sorbonne in Paris. In 1941, he emigrated to the United States. His father-in-law, who had arrived a year earlier, appointed him head of Merkos Linyonei Chinuch, the educational arm of the Lubavitch movement. He also became head of Machne Israel, the social service organization, and of the Kahat Publication Society. Soon afterward, he began writing his scholarly notations to various Hasidic and Kabbalistic treatises, as well as a wide range of responsa on Torah subjects. These works reveal the intellectual profundity of the young rabbi. In the summer of 1944, he received word of his father's passing in a remote city in central Russia. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak had been arrested in 1939 by the NKVD for spreading Yiddishkeit. His imprisonment had taken its toll. During that time, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was comforted by the fact that he could continue his writing. His wife, the Rebbe's mother, the Rebbitzin Chana Schneerson, helped him by secretly manufacturing ink for his writing from herbs she gathered in the fields. 30 years later, the incredible manuscripts found their way to the Rebbe. To date, 5 volumes of these writings have already been published. After the passing of Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson in 1950, Rabbi Menachem Mendel reluctantly ascended to the leadership of the Chabad Lubavitch movement.
All the immoralities of the world will disappear from the world, and God will take it out of the world.
That was a tremendous body of work that the Rebbe has instigated or inspired throughout the last 40 years.
Nothing less than revolutionary. For those that remember 40 years ago, the kind of things that the Jewish community was willing to do in the public, it was under the impression that keep things inside, keep your Judaism inside. And the Rebbe's, maybe his most revolutionary movement was to take things into the public, because education was so weak, Jewish education was so weak around the country. The Rebbe felt that we can use the public media for educational purposes. And really this has been his efforts over the last 40 years, is to mass education for as many Jews as possible. But together with that, the Rebbe combined the mitzvah campaign, where instead of trying to convey a whole lifestyle or a whole Torah, how can you do that unless you have a student to lock him up there for a couple of years and teach him?
We're going to see some of that in a minute, in our next segment.
Mitzvah by mitzvah is what he did. And when you look at the interviews and the lectures of the Rebbe from 40 years ago, he really had it right on the button. I mean, he knew what he wanted, he knew it was possible, and he pushed and got it done. I look back at it, even myself, over my brief career in the Lubavitch movement the last 15 years. Even within these 15 years, there's been such a tremendous change and forward movement within the efforts of Lubavitch. And all of this really are attributable to the foresight and the brilliance of this individual, the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
What I find interesting is the fact that in terms of media and in terms of spreading the word and getting the message out, that they use every single modern method going, including things like this satellite broadcast, which is going around the world.
Well, just the satellite here at بعומر. Now, here is a day which was always celebrated by going out into the field, by taking the children out for an outing. And what the Rebbe did was, he made it an event right here on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, brought it out into the street, had one of the major thoroughfares in Brooklyn closed off, tens of thousands of children coming together, something which was unheard of in those times. And now it's not just here, but broadcast throughout the world on satellite. Watching us here today, there are groups in Moscow, a new feature, I guess, not
from Moscow, yeah?
Yeah, not of too long of a duration. In London, in France, in Italy, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Australia, and in Israel. So it's a unifying force throughout the world. And the importance is the understanding and pride that an individual has in his Judaism. If that's what we can convey, that's really the objective. The Rebbe is continuing, so we'll try and give you the gist of what the Rebbe is saying in somewhat abbreviated form. I must emphasize that any of difficulty in understanding is the shortcomings of the translator.
Give it your best shot.
The Rebbe picks up on the concept that he mentioned before, that it is more obvious in a child when you see the growth as opposed to an adult when you don't see that degree of growth, particularly when they have a parade which is devoted to children, which emphasizes to a child that it is not sufficient to be content with the level of achievement that one has achieved, but the child has to grow. Just like a parade is a movement forward, a walking, likewise one should be in a continuous state of walking and movement in observance of Torah and bringing of light into the world. Until a child achieves the pinnacle of education possible, and then that carries over into their mature years, bar and bas mitzvah, or in the age of understanding and maturity for any child throughout the world, which this permeates them even more with the sense of service of God. As our sages tell us, I have been created to serve my Creator. And this applies to everything, because the Talmud tells us that everything which God created in the world, He created exclusively for His honor. So certainly it is so with human beings, that they are for the honor of God. Because of this, it is also a pity for children who are not within the environment of their normal environment of the school, but are here at the parade.
Bemele darfen sich mischtadelt sein auf Mikatze sein Bekamus. Und befragt noch, hat das letztlich wegen Kinder, weil sie seine Beine Chochma, Bina, Vadas, weil man sie von die Werte und von die Maimori,
these concepts even in their own schools. Therefore, just a brief view of the quotes of our sages, because they on their own have the principles and a lot of the concepts for which they can themselves glean more and more in a continuously progressive level, until they will ultimately be seen before God in Zion, as we have mentioned many times during the course of this past year. Which this year, which is in the Hebrew letters, Tov Shin Nun, may it be a year of miracles. The greatest miracle, the redemption for each individual and for the entire world, as we have mentioned many times. Therefore, it is appropriate to conclude with just a comment that it should be a continuous event for all of the days following this day of Lag BaOmer in the schools, and more so throughout the coming month of Sivan, the third month of the year, which that is the month in which the Torah was given to the Jewish people, which that includes everything, all the material and spiritual things that were given to us, as mentioned in this week's portion of the Torah, which we will read. As is mentioned in the weekly portion, that I will bring you upright, and before that, that there will be peace in the land, and that the Jewish people will return from exile complete and with joy to our holy land. And there in Jerusalem, the holy city, upon the holy mountain, in the Holy of Holies in the temple, in a way of miracles, the miracles that are evident in this year, the year of miracles, as we have already passed through the majority of the months of the year, of this year of miracles, because we are already in the following month after the majority, and we are in the 18th day of the month. 18th means chai, life, which means it gives additional enthusiasm and life in all matters of pertaining to the service of God, both within the Jewish world and the world at large. As Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, that he assumes upon himself responsibility for the entire world, and that he can free the world of any negative judgment. As one of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbes emphasized, the concept of the ability to remove any kind of separation between various aspects of Torah or various aspects within the world. It becomes a unified world. This is brought closer through the fulfillment of the commandment of charity, as we mentioned many times, so that God will give peace in the land, and He fulfills the promise that He will bring us there upright, which each and every year we have to add something. So we will add here to distribute to each and every one of the children, and also the adults who came here in merit of the children, that they should have this as a remembrance of this year, the year of miracles, was verbunden mit Binyan HaMishkan und Binyan Beis HaMikdash und the Klei HaMikdash. One of silver, which is associated with the building of the temple, as many aspects of the temple were built with silver, and they were used in the bringing of sacrifices in the temple. And instead of using the silver, which could be used for unnecessary material things, but they are rather used for a charitable purpose, and a charity which is associated with holiness and sanctity. This will be a memento from this day, that already in this day more should be done in all of the matters which bring closer the coming of the Messiah and the redemption. And it will be distributed to all of the children and to all of the adults who are gathered here because of the children. May it be the will of God that the redemption should be immediately, and that the Messiah can even come during the time which these memento coins will be distributed. So that we can then, together with the Messiah, all go to Israel and to Jerusalem and to the Temple Mount,
Und die Neke shall base
And even to
Rabon
the
und die
Holy of
Kinder
Holies,
gehen bereich,
and
Weet
particularly the
wir,
children who will then lead us,
Teke vom
but
Jahr
it should be
Mama.
speedily and soon.
This is, I think, the third satellite broadcast of the Loch Bomer Parade and the festivities here at the Chabad Lubavitch headquarters in Brooklyn, New York. We are on international satellite around the world, and we're seen in how many countries?
Well, Moscow.
Several dozen.
Moscow, England, Paris, France, Italy, Argentina, Brazil, Australia, and Israel.
And our hometowns. My name is Les Nierenberg. I'm from Toronto, and this is Shmuel
Rabbi
Kaplan.
Shmuel Kaplan.
Rabbi Shmuel Kaplan of Baltimore.
Well,
Maryland.
Maryland, the Lubavitch representative for the state of Maryland.
We earlier showed a little bit of history of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's accomplishments over the past 40 years. And now we can show you more of that, the mitzvah tanks and all kinds of other wonderful things. Here it is. We're in it.
The philosophy of Chabad Lubavitch was inspired by the biblical motto, "And you shall spread forth to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south."
As sie seien in der letzte Tag von Golus zu Parazzo Yomo wa Kedma. So wird so feiner wie Negbo und das ist der Robre, dem Jahre Haperitz lefonein und sehr Mischiach sind keine Bekore Mamos und besimchof Tuvli Wog. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Almost immediately, Lubavitch centers began springing up all over the world. Today, there are hundreds of Chabad Lubavitch institutions serving their respective communities in every possible way. On many college campuses, the Chabad house is a home away from home for Jewish kids. Chabad Lubavitch has taken a frontline position in the battle against missionary and cult forces. The Rebbe's popular mitzvah campaigns continue to inspire Jews of all walks of life. The mitzvah mobiles, the mitzvah tanks, the tanks against assimilation are a common sight in cities and towns around the world. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, the Rebbe inaugurated his famous Tefillin campaign. He called for all men over the age of 13 to put on tefillin each weekday morning. At every possible occasion, the Rebbe urges all Jews to spread the mitzvah campaigns. He calls for a proper Torah true education for every Jewish boy and girl. He asks that every Jewish person set aside time each day to study Torah. He appeals for mezuzah to be properly affixed to doorposts. He stresses the importance of giving charity and the enrichment of the home with sacred books. The Rebbe urges all Jewish women to observe the three mitzvot especially incumbent upon them. He asks all women and girls from the age of 3 to light the Shabbat and holiday candles at the proper times, that they observe kashrut, eating only kosher food, both at home and away, and to observe the laws of mikvah, of family purity. The Rebbe emphasizes the responsibility of Jewish women and their unique and vital role. He urges them to imbue their families with positive values, peace, and harmony. The Rebbe speaks about the sanctity of the Jewish family, stressing the fallacy of family planning and its disastrous consequences. Children, many children, are the greatest gift God can bestow upon us. The Rebbe is especially devoted to children, guides them and prepares them for a life fulfilled in Torah and mitzvah. To the Rebbe, the children are the Tzivus Hashem, soldiers in God's army, the future of our people. The 10th mitzvah, the Rebbe stresses, is Ahavat Yisrael, a reaching out and sharing of the Torah true life with others. out of love and devotion for one's fellow Jew. Recently, the Rebbe inaugurated a massive worldwide campaign with the objective of uniting all Jews, regardless of background or affiliation, through Torah. The Rebbe revived an old tradition in which Jewish people are able to purchase a single letter to be inscribed in a Sefer Torah. 4 million Jewish men, women, and children have thus far participated in the writing of these Sifrei Torah. The campaign continues to inspire Jews all over the world as they unite through Torah.
We're back at Lubavitch World Headquarters in Brooklyn, New York for the annual Loch Bomer Parade. This is the 3rd satellite broadcast of the Loch Bomer Parade, and this is an event for children and families, and we're seen around the world. My name is Les Nierenberg. I'm from Toronto. I'm with Rabbi Shmuel Kaplan of Maryland.
Well, this is not just adults and children. It is primarily children. The Loch Bomer Day Parade is focused on the children.
You mean we can have fun too?
If you'll be good, we'll let you have some fun.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
It's a time when the children gain a sense of pride in their Judaism. Book learning is essential and necessary and good, but there's nothing like children feeling that what they believe in and what they study about can be demonstrated for others here in the public realm. So this is a children's parade, maybe unique, as we'll see somewhat later in the floats that will come by. The floats were not done by Madison Avenue, but they were put together by students of the various educational institutions here in Crown Heights and in the major metropolitan area. So it's all the work of students for the children. The adults here take a completely secondary role.
I understand that there are a lot of non-Jewish children involved in this as well. Are there not marching bands that are
Yes, there'll be marching bands here as well.
Various organizations. And
the celebration is for Lag BaOmer, which is the 33rd day as we count between Passover and Shavuos, the celebration of the receiving of the Torah. On this day, 2 events took place. One is Rabbi Akiva, who was a sage of the 2nd century. Many of his students, he had 24,000 students, and the plague broke out amongst them, and they died. On this day, Lag BaOmer, is when the plague ceased. So it's considered a day of salvation, and Rabbi Akiva was once again able to rebuild his students and preserve the Torah for our generation. The second event was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived in also in the 2nd century, was the major exponent of the Kabbalah. He wrote the famous book, the Zohar, which is what all of the mystical writings of Judaism is based upon. And he passed away on this day. But on this day, he instructed that it be a day of celebration, not a day of solemnity. And here we go with the parade. We're ready to get underway.
We should mention also Rabbi Hecht, who has been doing some great translating. That last bit of translation was really spirited. Here comes the parade.
All right, Les, you having fun?
I'm having a great time. I love this. This is wonderful.
As the Rebbe mentioned, actually, his parade, that in his talk, that it's being led by a contingent of New York's finest on their horses.
The flags represent the American flag, the Stars and Stripes, and the flags of Mesivos Shabbos and the Tzivos Hashem.
That's the youth group that is the organization responsible for this event.
Getting big rounds of applause here by everybody, including the Rebbe. This is a mitzvah tank.
A mitzvah tank is a mobile unit that goes out to reach Jews wherever they can be found. The Rebbe, when he initiated this concept, said just as a physical tank is able to cross a trench or any kind of terrain, likewise the concept of the tank is to reach out to Jews that may be in a sense across the terrain. They think they're in someplace else. There's a gulf between us, and the tank creates that unity and shows that the Jewish people are one wherever they are.
I always looked at it as being a kind of a fix-it shop on wheels. You can fix just about anything. It comes into your neighborhood and fix anything.
Well, certainly gives you an opportunity to do a mitzvah when often you don't have that opportunity. And there are today mitzvah mobiles or mitzvah tanks throughout the world.
And here's a real tank.
I think the mitzvah tank is more comfortable. I'd like to ride in that one.
This mitzvah tank, this first mitzvah tank, apparently has been dedicated to the blessed memory of the late Rebbitzin, Chaya Musya, the wife of the Rebbe.
As we see now, the color guard passing by the reviewing stand.
Walking through here. And here comes the Tzivos Hashem drum corps. The color guard is from Fort Hamilton, New York.
And the tank that passed was from the 101st Cavalry, 42nd Infantry Division of the New York Army National Guard. All arranged by United States Army Chaplain Major Jacob Goldstein. Now here comes the Tzivos Hashem band. Believe it or not, these are Cheder children.
They got great rhythm, I love it. These kids are led by Moshe Pekar and Menachem Friedman.
Well, you know, the Cheder used to have an image that maybe teachers used to carry these little sticks, but they would wrap the knuckles with them.
That's it. Used to beat me on the head with
Today it's the children wrapping the drums.
Right. That's right. It's come a long way.
As we can see, the children are mostly of a tender age. I don't think any of these children are more than 11 or 12 years old. Some of them yet younger.
Some real little guys in that group.
The man leading the tank with, that's Chaplain Goldstein.
Dressed in fatigues.
He was actually in Grenada when the United States Army went into Grenada with that operation, and he was also there. He printed a Jewish book, a Tanya, in Grenada as a memento from the operation there. Happy faces, you can't beat that on a parade day.
What channel?
Based on what the Rebbe said earlier, this is a tank which is only used for peaceful purposes.
For parades.
For parades, and that's the way all of them should really be used.
It's for sure.
You make an awful lot of plowshares out of one of these tanks.
That's right. Great idea.
Give them a round of applause. Let's go. Okay, here's the commentator of the police. Give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to brief the crowd, an important part of the parade. And you'll notice that all the animals are kosher animals. The Rebbe pointed this out once to us, and we listen when we are told what to do.
Once we get some of the formal parts of the procession, we'll get down to the float.
The theme of this float, love through bruchas. What is it? Love through bruchas.
We're going to have to wait till we get a better chance to catch that one.
Give them a round of applause.
And of course, zillions of clowns. I think the Rebbe's getting a kick out of this.
Certainly out of the clowns.
this is the wonderful world of brachas.
Every time that a person partakes of some food or pleasure in this world, there is a blessing, a thanks to God for giving it to us or providing it to us. And this is the wonderful world of brachas, I suppose, going to demonstrate all of the different blessings. But before that, we've got an ambulance coming past, and this is an ambulance that has been dedicated to Shaarei Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem in memory of Alta Mina Teichel.
This ambulance is going to, right from the parade, will be going to Israel. How about this? Give it a round of applause. The hospital with a heart, Shaarei Tzedek Hospital. Okay, here comes the chief from the United States Army.
Again, when you see an ambulance pass by, it should only be used for parades.
That's right. Again. This was for Shaarei, that ambulance was for Shaarei Tzedek Hospital, I suppose.
Yes.
Right, and yeah.
The float that you see now, 6 days of the week in Shabbos. We work 6 days, but the 7th day we quit. Or rather, the 6 days we work for the sake of Shabbat in order to have the physical relaxation, but the spiritual relaxation and peace that the day of Shabbat brings.
Tour through Bracha land.
When it seems strange and exotic, creation will witness the glory and power of the King in performing mitzvahs such as building your place for your room. Come bring the blood of sword and foul of peace. Finally, the blessing of the Holy Temple may be rebuilt speedily in our days. Isn't that gorgeous? Give a round of applause.
This is the once again the bracha float.
Yeah, but different scenes, I suppose, depict the different blessings. What I can see from here is a bride and groom. At a marriage, there are 7 blessings that are said at a marriage to sanctify a marriage. This float was prepared by the...
Is there a bracha you take when you're on a train? Is that what the little train is about?
Oh, in fact, I don't know if that's what it is, but there is a bracha. Tfilas Haderech. When you travel, there's special blessings we say for traveling.
That's right.
Trees would produce fruits. I guess that's part of the tour through bracha land.
Appears to be a float dedicated to Russian Jewry.
At least one is doing hard work, so maybe that's what it's dedicated to. Yeah. It's a real work.
They're building a Chabad house now in Moscow. Is that what it is?
No, this is the 6 days of the week. There's a fellow who is building.
6 days of the week.
Yeah, and if you can see the baker who is baking bread, someone else is, I'm not sure whether it's plowing or something like that.
Is he putting a mezuzah on the door right there?
No, building the house.
No, he's putting a mezuzah on the doorpost. Really?
Yeah. Also part of the work that you would do in the 6th day.
Why not? It's work
not
too.
to be done on Shabbat. But then comes the 7th day, and the 7th day, of course, the day of Shabbat. Oh, I can see something else now. A scribe, a sofer, busily writing a Torah.
Is that a mezuzah or not that he's putting on?
Yeah, it must be a big mezuzah. They have to pound it in like that.
That's a big mezuzah right there. There we go.
Yes,
see?
it is.
Sure
yes, it is. Yes, sir.
I'm not such a maven on this, but it looked like...
But a mezuzah you can tell.
That's right.
All the works of the chapter. Oh, then you got the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers. And the tanks. There we got our maker. Hey, boy.
Mezuzah, of course, is the symbol that the Torah commands us to put on the doorpost to signify that the home and everything inside of it belongs to God and is dedicated to God and given to us to use for good purposes. And the culmination of the 6 days, of course, is the day of Shabbat. There's a table with all Shabbat goodies laid out there. Followed by
United Lubavitcher Yeshiva's band. The children are wearing special shirts for Loch Bomer in the special year of Shnas
Harboim, the 40th year of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's leadership. Two events. The Shnas in the year of miracle is the mnemonic for the year. My family came in this morning with me from Maryland, and I only wish that they would be able to be part of one of these things, but unfortunately they'll just be watching. I shouldn't say unfortunately, it's quite a lot of excitement and fun just to watch.
I'm very happy to be here. It's wonderful to be here sitting next to you, Shmuel Kaplan from Maryland.
Here comes the school bus of Lubavitcher Yeshiva, embellished with a large sign reading Yechia B'Neim Avinu Rabbeinu.
The celebration of Lag BaOmer is the Hilula de Rashbi, the celebration of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rashbi is the first letter of those words. Rabbi, the teacher, Shimon is his name, then Yochai, the son of Yochai. And he instructed that this day should be a day of rejoicing because of the teachings that he taught on this day, which surpassed all that he had accomplished until that time, and put down in the work of the Zohar, the Book of Splendor, which has been the power and mystical force behind Judaism all these years.
They are followed by the United Lubavitcher Yeshiva, which I was a little bit confused about. Is that not here? This bus is followed by a 19-piece marching band of the yeshiva led by Rabbi Yitzchok Heck.
My, look at those children.
This is it.
I don't know, but
Band of teeny weenies here.
Taken an active participation in the parade. With assistance and the guidance of the Rebbe's and classes developed teams which are presenting here this morning. In addition, the many hundreds of children here are all wearing the Yeshiva's official beautiful Lag BaOmer parade shirt. The kinder of early childhood just passed by. The future shluchim of the Rebbe's will primarily use our union and teachings.
I would take a guess and say those are paper torches. Am I right?
yeah, well, one of these ways in which Lag BaOmer is celebrated traditionally is by lighting of bonfires and carrying of torches. So they've got them in paper. As you can tell, this is a parade for the children. It's the children marching, whether it be in bands or just parading by with signs and banners proclaiming their pride in Judaism and Jewish traditions.
Something significant about this little group here of animals.
Clowns.
Clowns, but they're also all kosher animals.
They're kosher animals, I see.
There's a chicken, like as such.
From where I come, the chicken is the Oriole, the
Baltimore chicken.
Mascot, the Baltimore, yeah.
In my hometown, we have the blue jays, also another form of chicken.
Is a blue jay a kosher bird?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask a rabbi about that. When in doubt, you ask a rabbi. Regardless of any plans of the secular world, the Jewish people will go Now comes the train. Oh, here it is. The fourth grade of Rabbi Donovan is coming down with the train. Ready with the words?
When we keep the faith, okay. Here comes the next train. This is Rabbi Rimla. I heard him 3 times I said the name already. Okay, this is it.
What do they represent?
Well, these are children that are carrying, instead of just a banner, it's an interesting way of doing it. The children are all holding on to a long banner as they march past, which is the name of the school, the Lubavitch Yeshiva, and then they've got the words, Hoyosi Yeshnas, this may be the year of miracles. And another verse from the Psalms and our prayers, they take counsel against us, but it will come to naught because God is with us. And they conclude that we want Mashiach now. They're also hoping for the coming of the Messiah.
The 5th grades, headed by Rabbi Anna Prokowski, are now marching through carrying beautiful posters portraying the various mitzvahs proclaimed by the Rebbe Shlita. Oh, go take it easy, fellas. Okay, under the leadership of Rabbi Schneerson, has trained the youth of musical groups that will enhance the parade.
We're live from Lubavitch headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, 770 Eastern Parkway. This is a round-the-world satellite broadcast.
We are being heard this afternoon in the USSR in Moscow, in London, England, also in Manchester in England, in France, in Paris, in Italy, in Milan, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, in Australia, both in Sydney and Melbourne, and also at the hotel at the Western Wall.
Okay, kids, that was gorgeous.
And in Bnei Brak.
Beautiful. Give them a hand, everybody. Give them a hand. They played that on their flutes, which they learned. Rabbi Karp? Is that his group now? Okay. With his guitar?
The preparation that the children put in, it sort of is a focus of their extracurricular activities for weeks beforehand. And they all feel the pride and involvement, and finally they're here to be able to march in front of this huge public, thousands of people here, and present themselves also in front of the Lubavitch Rebbe, the leader of the Lubavitch movement and the leader of world Jewry. This is a thrill that children have been waiting for and building up to all of this time.
Okay, Rabbi Sholem in 7th grade presents its mini float. The bicycle brigade portraying the mitzvahs Talmidim of Rabbi Mendel Marosh of 7th grade.
And now we're coming up to the float. This is the yeshiva children that were passing by, and the older students now presenting the float that they have made. This is the Lubavitch yeshiva, which is
those are the Rebbe's Mitzvah that they're carrying in those plaques.
40 years of the Lubavitch Rebbe's leadership of the Lubavitch movement.
And the float represents the many programs initiated by the Rebbe over the past 40 years. The Tefillin campaign, which has introduced millions of Jews to this special mitzvah, and Mezuzah campaign, the establishment of hundreds of Chabad houses that serve Jews around the world as the address for anything connected to Yiddishkeit, a home away from home for many young people.
Okay, here comes the Siddur Hashem generals.
Someone putting on
Give them a hand because they're entitled to it.
That's not it? Okay, well, we live and learn. That's a prelude to, but that does indicate there's someone laying there. And,
yes, and lighting of Shabbos candles.
And lighting Shabbos candles, yeah. Okay.
I recently received a letter from a fellow in Baltimore who had begun putting on tefillin because he was stopped once in Manhattan and asked to put out film, and it revived his religious observance. Now, we didn't know if about it because it's only about 16 years later that he wrote us a letter because he had lost the pamphlet that came with it. He wanted a new one. But sometimes you don't know the impact it can have.
But had he been doing
Every single day. He wrote that he's a businessman that travels a lot, and the children have been with him around the world.
In accordance with his class's special color.
Hold your hand here.
Chabad of Island Park, Illinois, who came in special for the parade. Give him a round of
Passing right
applause
now is a contingent from Illinois, Chabad Community Hebrew School from Highland Park, Illinois. Now these children must have had a long bus ride.
That's meant to be the Moses Daycare Center.
It looks like even the weather has been cooperating. It's lightened up and it's quite pleasant now.
Slightly overcast here. We were a little worried earlier today whether we'd be able to have a relatively dry day. It looks like we may be.
Thus, I told you I'm bringing the good weather from down south.
You did it.
This is the Army of Hashem, the true Army of Hashem Club. Aren't they gorgeous? Can they know her? Kate Yilbu.
Look for Bobby. Look at Bobby. Say hi, Bobby.
Notice the concentration that the Rebbe has on those that are marching past the main reviewing stand. He focuses on the children and communicates with the children almost on an individual basis. And you get a shot and you see the intensity with which the Rebbe is looking at these children. It's something remarkable.
Also, he's to be admired for the sheer energy of being able to go through long farbrengen, long situations like this on his feet for long hours, and that's quite amazing. And again, speaking without notes and all kinds of stuff like that.
We mentioned earlier that Rabbi just celebrated his 88th birthday, and yet for this kind of celebration for the children, he spares no effort to participate, to celebrate together with them.
Give him a round of applause. Go to the little Tisa Kindala.
And nachas, you know, the nachas that Rebbe has from the children, that sense of pleasure and pride as he sees the children march past.
And the nachas on the faces of the parents and the mothers that are leading those kids through this parade, too. It's a two-way street.
Here comes the kindergarten of Beistifka. Kindergarten of Beistifka.
To some extent, the Rebbe's participation here is really an actualization of something that he mentioned in his talk, that spirituality and our relationship with God have to be practical and permeate our daily lives and everything that we do. And this is not the kind of thing you would normally expect a religious leader of his stature to be participating in, this kind of parade with children and floats and what have you. But the Rebbe demonstrates this is what it is all about, to make our daily lives that much better and holier.
And each group has its own colors, as you will see, as you see on the kids wearing their crowns. This one is obviously slow. Everybody waiting to the Rabbi. Okay. 1A Beistifka. 1A of the Beistifka. Pre-1A, still pre-1A, okay?
If you're just joining us somewhere around the world, this is a Lag parade, a festive children's parade in celebration of the 33rd day of the Omer. celebrating Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great 2nd century sage, and also Rabbi Akiva, and the rebuilding of Jewish learning and scholarship after a great tragedy of plague that had befallen his students. And the emphasis here is on children. We're being broadcasting from the heart of Brooklyn and broadcasting throughout the world, in the USSR, in England, in France, in Italy, in Argentina, in Brazil, Australia, and of course in Israel. All around the world tuned into this wonderful parade here, and focused on the main reviewing stand where the Lubavitch Rebbe, a leader of the Lubavitch movement and a leader of world Jewry, is reviewing the children on the floats as they drive past.
This is the third live satellite broadcast to be broadcast from the world headquarters of the Chabad Lubavitch movement at 770 Eastern Parkway here in Brooklyn. And as usual, it's jumping. We're having fun.
Following the march, which the children participate in, they will then go to an area of the community which has been specially designated, where many rides are set up, and they have a wonderful afternoon of fun, of rides and games.
We have now the generals, the girl generals of Tzivos Hashem.
These are the girls of Tzivos Hashem.
Well, generals.
The generals, yeah.
Of course, this is the army of Hashem, and this youth group that encompasses children around the world. Both boys and girls go up in rank as they do mitzvot, fulfill commandments and observances. And so here you've got a group of girls that are generals.
It's wonderful.
Quite young to achieve such a station in life, huh?
All the chiefs of staff here. The Pentagon of Tzivos Hashem, or what?
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. I know my children participate in it, but I don't think any of mine are generals yet.
Are they? What ranks are they now?
I'd have to be embarrassed. I don't recall the ranks of my children. But they outrank me, that's for sure.
And it says on the banner, 1,000-point generals. That's just not 2 or 3 star generals.
This is Yeshiva Ratzad.
Okay.
These are Jews from Bukhara. These are Russian Jews. Give them a round of applause. Welcome them to America. Right. In Russia, they couldn't do this, so let's let them feel the freedom of that we have over here, Baruch Hashem.
Can you translate that for me?
I can tell her that there's a crowd.
Ole Torah, the kindergarten, and Ole Torah Elementary. Ole Torah, these are the children of 8 kindergarten classes.
Sign with it bears the float, I suppose, in the back of it in commemoration of the 40th year of Lubavitch Rebbe's leadership.
Each of the 8 classes is carrying its own flag. Okay, let's see it. That's the kindergarten now. All they tell that's coming through now.
Around the world, and particularly in the small town of Miron in Israel. That is the burial site of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
All the
customary
students will be buried in
make
the
a
special
pilgrimage
t-shirts
to Miron in Israel. There are thousands, tens of thousands of people that gather there from all over Israel. Many even camp there for a couple of days before. And that's where the focus of the celebrations are in Israel.
All right, we'll watch it as it comes up.
There are thousands of parades such as this happening all around the world too, as we're watching this, and goes through the various time zones.
The Rebbe mentioned during his talk that there is no generation gap here amongst children that are devoted to the study of Torah. They reflect the values and ideals of their parents. If you just noticed, there was an older gentleman walking amongst the children. Actually, he's the founder of a school, and he's walking with the smallest children and enjoying participating with the children. Certainly, it's the most effective demonstration of the lack of any kind of schism or gap between a younger generation and an older generation.
We want to see us down. Ad Nosa, even the kids are crying Ad Nosa. How long do you have to wait for the kids?
Hello, could you line up? I'll be straight, look at the camera.
The children marching past it from Ohole Torah, one of the local schools in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, where the parade is taking place.
This is not much to stop the hand of the hands of the Mendel, which is the next one so much today.
Look at the camera and smile. Look at the camera and smile. Look at the camera and smile. Make a nice smile. Look at the camera and smile.
Don't do that while I can see you, though.
As the children pass by the main reviewing stand, they look up to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, and he usually waves back to the children and looks at them and smiles to them.
That's the Schneerson, that's it. That's our way. And here comes the roll of the house, and guys the a heart to know what eyes to see and ears to hear. And these little pieces of people up there are totally overwhelmed.
The parade is focused almost exclusively on the children. It's their parade. It's a parade for children, by children. Every part of it is really done by the young people. There is no professional contribution here, unless, of course, the broadcasting. Otherwise, it's a children's effort.
A lot of effort has gone into these costumes and the floats and everything else. It's amazing.
Okay, now we welcome 318. 318 of only 10. How about you? Everyone wearing, of course, the Schneerson polo shirts.
Take your jacket off that way.
Schnell. Quick, let's go. Help us in.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe is celebrating 40 years of his leadership of the movement. In 1950, at the passing of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Joseph Schneerson, he was elected to the position, and for the last 40 years he has led the movement in its expansion throughout the world and in the monumental efforts to revive Torah observance throughout the world. The Rebbe has gone really beyond the Jewish community. As he emphasized in his talk, he was directing his remarks towards the world at large, particularly through the observance of the 7 Noahide commandments.
Those are commandments of Noah that preceded the Jewish commandments? Or what?
Right, well, when God created man, he gave him certain basic principles by which to live, and they were reiterated to Noah after the flood. And that's why they're called the Noahide laws, because all of mankind is descended from Noah after the flood. These 7 basic laws were then repeated to Moses at Sinai, but they were to be given to the nations of the world.
What are those Noahide laws?
The first is belief in God, and then a prohibition against murder, prohibition against theft, a prohibition against idolatry, a prohibition against cruelty to animals, a prohibition against immorality, and the commandment of establishment of a just system of laws, to organize civilization by just laws.
Are we seeing a greater emphasis on that today, or what? I believe we are.
A much greater emphasis.
In the world, yeah.
In fact, President Bush, as well as the previous presidents, Reagan and Carter, emphasized by proclamations the importance of adherence to the basic principles, the 7 Noahide principles. At various times, the Congress has re-emphasized that as well.
For those cable viewers who must leave us now, we thank you for being with us, and we hope you've enjoyed this telecast of the celebration of the Festival of Loch Bomer coming to you on international satellite. And for those of you who continue, we're going to send you another hour of festivities here at Lubavitch World Headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. This is a live telecast from Lubavitch World Headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn at 770 Eastern Parkway, the headquarters of Lubavitch. This is the annual Loch Bomer Parade.
Loch Bomer, which commemorates the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, one of the great sages of the 2nd century, one of the authors of the Mishnah and the Talmud. At the time of his passing, he instructed that this be a day of celebration because he was privileged to be able to reveal on this day many, many secrets of the Torah which had been withheld from the people until this time. And it's the inspiration of his work, the Book of Zohar, the Book of Splendor, which inspired Jews throughout these generations and gave us a deeper understanding into the Torah and its laws. The celebration here is for children, by children. It's the children who are doing the marching, demonstrating their pride in Judaism. The Rebbe emphasized in his remarks to the children, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the leader of the Lubavitch movement, that although we see growth in children very conspicuously, every time you see your children, they're a little bigger. But growth also is a spiritual concept. Children grow in their education and their knowledge of morality, values, and general education. But we as adults should then reflect back what we see in the children. The knowledge that children acquire should also be a pursuit of adults. We should continue our growth, our spiritual growth and knowledge of Torah.
Lucky you got stuck over here, kids.
I should mention Rabbi Schneerson, of the state of Maryland, together with...
And I'm Les Nierenberg, I'm from Toronto.
And we're here to host this broadcast for you. This broadcast is going throughout the world. The Soviet Union is being seen in Moscow. In England, it's being seen in London and Manchester. In France, it's being seen in Paris. In Italy, it's in Milan. In Argentina, in Buenos Aires. In Brazil, in Sao Paulo. In Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne. And in Israel, at the hotel at the Western Wall, the one structure remaining from the era of the Second Temple, and also in Bnei Brak, a main city in Israel.
This is also a very special day because it commemorates 40 years of hard work and activity by the Lubavitcher Rebbe to further Yiddishkeit around the world to Jews everywhere.
If you notice numerous times, the letter is Tov Shin Nun, 3 Hebrew letters. That is the numerical value. If you add the hay in the beginning, 5,750, which is the Jewish calendar counting from the day of creation, the beginning of creation. And these letters, because in Hebrew letters are also numbers, and therefore they have meaning, the letters have been used to demonstrate this year as the Shnas Nisim may be a year of miracles. Starting from October, the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah, we indeed have seen many, many miracles throughout the world. Some of the most extraordinary events that have taken place. And that's also one facet that's being commemorated here by the children who are doing the parading this Loch Bomer.
And if these children are a result of 40 years of activity by Lubavitch, it certainly is a wonderful result.
Well, I'll take it in a minute. while they're making the formation, the letters, you see they're printing out the letters of Schneerson Abud. Yeah, this is a map. And that one is a youth over there, that's correct.
Of the Hebrew
and that's
letters
an iron over there to my
as
right.
they march past, trying to get a view of what letters they are. I think it's the letters of the year.
I was asked by the police to ask you people to move back to the barriers because the floats have to come through.
It is in Hebrew 40 years. Nun mem shana.
What happens now? Ellie, some music.
What you see is a celebration of the special mitzvah of Shabbos candle lighting, which the Lubavitcher Rebbe began in 1974.
I don't know if anybody realizes, but did you notice that the sun just came out?
What a gorgeous child. There's a Hebrew word for that. That's chayin.
Chayin. Yes, I know what that is. It's not what you eat with gefilte fish.
No.
Another band of Kiwis here. We know where they're from. A cheder. Lubavitcher cheder.
Lubavitcher cheder, where?
We're not sure.
Cheder in Morristown, New Jersey.
Okay. Here comes Olel Soreb Daycare Center.
This This is the Celebration 40 float. This is the float celebrating the Rebbe's 40 years of hard work and inspiration to Jews around the world.
It's headed by a crown, a kesef, which is symbolic of the crown of leadership.
This float was built by the boys of the Lubavitcher Yeshiva at Tonkek Tninen, Ocean Parkway, and sponsored by Kama?
Kama, yeah. Kama is interesting. It's an organization that was founded in the Soviet Union, and it carried on underground work for Judaism in the Soviet Union. And then during the mid-late 70s, when most of the activists came out from the Soviet Union, some came to this country, some to Israel, they reformulated the organization to educate the emigres, Russian emigres coming out of the Soviet Union.
This is apparently a time of special significance here, as outlined in the Torah.
That these kids have to see the Nefesh, they drove a whole
why is this a time
in order to be at the name for this parade.
The concept of a 40-year period. If you remember from the Hebrew school days, the Jewish people spent 40 years in the desert, following which Moses told the Jewish people that now that 40 years have passed, God has given you the lev ladas, the heart to know, Einayim lira is the eyes to see, Oznayim lishmeya, and ears to hear. You have a new perception, a new more profound perception about the events that happened during the 40 years of the receiving of the Torah. So after a 40-year period, we take this concept and apply it to any 40-year period, that there's a whole new perspective that begins after the completion of one 40-year period of time. And that's what the emphasis of Schneerson, the 40th year celebration of the leadership of the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
This float also depicts the programs initiated by the Lubavitcher Rebbe over the past 40 years. They are the Tefillin campaigns, mezuzah campaigns, candle lighting, establishment of hundreds of Chabad houses throughout the world.
Okay, haircut. Hold it there, hold it a minute. Okay, haircut. Children's Torah Foundation of the Torah Academy in Queens.
Well, the angle that the cameras are viewing things, they can see all the way down the street, and they get people watching on the cable or on the satellite get a preview before they actually reach the viewing stand. So it's sort of a sneak preview before they actually come up to the front where the parade is passing by.
And more of the activities of Chabad Lubavitch over the past 40 years. Summer camps have been established for all Jewish boys and girls. Actually, regardless of affiliation, they can become part of the Lubavitch program anytime in summer, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been a hallmark of Lubavitch activities that it's for all Jews. We do not distinguish between categories of Jews. If someone is a Jew, there's nothing else to it. There's no appellation that comes with it. A Jew is a Jew, and that's it. And all of the programs and efforts of the Rebbe have been to reach out to every Jew on this basis. Acceptance of every Jew for what he is.
What appeals to me a lot about Lubavitch is the fact that they believe in a Havas Yisrael, which is that a love for other Jews, whether they're secular or religious or what. And this appeals to me a lot, being a secular Jew. So I find this quite amazing. Also, that we can be sitting here together in Loch Bomer and sharing this event. You and I.
Well, we hope one day to make you into a Lubavitcher.
Yeah, I know. Couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt. Well, here is the float for Schneerson, 40 years, and as you can see, it has the crown on it, symbolizing the 40 years, as well as different aspects of the holiday, particularly the 40 years that the Jewish people spent in the desert. You've got a replica of the tabernacle in the desert, and then the 40 years after the Jewish people had received the Torah, and God said that they had this whole new perspective on what had happened to them and the unique revelation they had from God at Sinai.
Coming up, the year of miracles, Shnas Nisim
are miracles, and Nisim start with the letter Nun. Nun is the 50. So Tafshin Nun is Nisim, a year of miracles. Now you see in different months is when different events happen. Looking at the float, the Berlin Wall fell in the month of Cheshvan, which was the second month of the year of this year. Then Kislev, the following month, was Romania, and he was in the Soviet Union from Shvat to Adar. And finally, we want to see now, after all of these events that happen throughout the world, it's time for the coming of the Messiah.
So it's like a miracle of the month club that we're in.
I think it's been this way this year.
Wonderful. What about next year? I hope it's the same.
Well, if we could just conclude the year with the coming of the Messiah and the beginning of redemption, we'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
Your attention, there are two children who are lost, and they are in the police temporary headquarters plan next block. One boy is so busy, we're going to have to get along here. Nothing, isn't it? Who lives in Muncie and goes to base, the bar.
Are there many congregations, synagogues that are involved in this today? And I know lots of little yeshivas and Hebrew schools, and this from Ivy Hill, New Jersey.
It's open to children from anywhere and everywhere. There's no limitation put on where the children can come from. There are children with long payas and with short payas, and
no payas.
And no payas.
Three major miracles from this year.
Okay, here comes the Yaakov of Brooklyn, and a beautiful group of girls.
Base Yaakov is a girls' school, I guess.
Yes. Rabbi Brooklyn. His cooperation.
There's one happy child.
There's the Yaakov High School also. Thank you very much.
We could use a little bottle with some water ourselves, couldn't we?
The Yaakov of Brooklyn.
Noticed that all of the police handling the parade are wearing these long coats in anticipation of rain, but the Rabbi has more faith and came out just with his usual garments.
That's right.
While these groups are
and thank God that's the way it's been. Everything held up. It's been a wonderful, exciting parade.
Through Kingston Avenue and down to Empire Boulevard. So after the parade, make sure you go and look at them because it's something you'll never.
This is the third annual satellite shot of the Beaumont Parade coming from Lubavitch World Headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, New York. We're on the international satellite today, and we hope you're getting it wherever you are in Australia, in Brazil, in Moscow, London. How do we say hello in Moscow? How do we say hello? My Russian's very weak.
I think mine is equal yours.
You can say hello to London and Manchester and Paris. Bonjour in Paris and Milan and Buenos Aires. My name is Les Nierenberg. I'm from Toronto, and I'm with Rabbi Shmuel Kaplan of Baltimore, Maryland, USA.
Uniforms and their own little decorations and their own insignias.
pivotal episodes in the life of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that we are celebrating today was the fact that he had to hide in a cave because he was wanted by the Roman government, and he hid out in the cave for 13 years, during which time he and his son, Rabbi Elazar, engaged in the diligent study of Torah. And our tradition has it that a miracle happened and a carob tree grew right in front of the cave, which sustained them. They were eating carobs for the duration of the time that they were in the cave. And it is said that this is where Rabbi Shimon was given a lot of the mystical insights into the Torah.
Another U.S. Honor Guard and U.S. Army, I guess, and jeeps and other vehicles.
These are actual guns. These are real ones, by the way. The Honeymobile, real thick vehicle, the 1st Battalion, 107th Infantry.
These are two 105mm howitzers that are being towed by these trucks, these U.S. Army trucks. And the color guard is with the 187th Field Artillery, New York Army National Guard.
General Goldstein, how you doing? Major. There are these kids. Here comes the last Yeshiva Ches. Silly.
Give me a high five. Tzivos Hashem baseball team.
No, we're watching a pair of tefillin march by.
Oh.
And there's the cake.
How about trying those on the sides?
I could get last in those. Base Cup out of Baltimore. That's a familiar place.
Familiar place.
Do you have anything to do with the base Chabad in Baltimore?
Yeah, sure.
Here come the tefillin, the huge tefillin.
Put on by the Lubavitch Yeshiva, the 8th grade. Well, I see the Rockville, Maryland group going by too. Got to point that out.
Contingent from Montreal. Pittsburgh, Yeshiva.
Here goes Pittsburgh. I can't see it on Pittsburgh. Beautiful game, special for the parade.
Okay, Chabad House from Montreal.
Yes.
Which is run by my friend Simcha Zirkin.
Right. Isn't it Peel Street? Peel Street?
On Peel Street, that's right. A home away from home for any Jewish kid that wants to come in there.
Okay, here comes the ladies Chabad of Baltimore, Maryland. Here comes the playground from President Street.
Yes.
Yeshiva Rosenberg, from Williamsburg. Okay? Rosenberg
We're watching different groups of children passing by from different schools. Here a group from the organization called Free Friends of Refugees in Eastern Europe. That's a group of Russian immigrants that developed an organization to help integrate Russian immigrants that come to this country into their religious background, to teach them and to help them make up some of the education that they lacked while they were in the Soviet Union.
Just because there's a thing called glasnost and openness and more freedom now, there's still much work that has to be done. Can you give me some idea what has to still be done and what must still be done there?
This year being the year of miracles, the first Jewish day school started, a Lubavitch yeshiva in Moscow, and they have relative success when you're dealing with a couple of hundred kids, but we're talking about millions of people. It's still such a small amount of what has to be done. What we're seeing now is the Upshernish float. One of the traditions that we had from Yitzchak Luria, the great Kabbalist in the 16th century, is to give a child their first haircut on this day of Bahomar in Iran, in the town at the burial site of Rabbi. Now it's traditional to do the haircutting, which is not so much a haircut as to the leaving of the payot, the sideburns that the Torah commands us to have. So this is the first mitzvah that a child fulfills, or is fulfilled with the child. They cut the hair and leave the payot, so they have the first symbol of Jewish observance.
Is this literally an Upshernish right here? They are literally getting their haircut right here.
Look at the children. You'll see they're all 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
They're all getting their haircut.
They all got long hair, so they cut everything else except the sideburns.
Except for the sideburns.
And they leave those.
In Iran, it's children all over Israel that come there for the Upshernish. And here is special floats made for these children.
It's a beautiful group.
So you mean all these guys here are actually trained barbers who are...
No, they're fathers.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Schmidt, they got it going in. Laying the house, behind the ways, behind the clear. Okay, they're going to flip the girls. Hi, kids. Okay.
Education really begins from the moment of birth. The Rebbe has emphasized many times that things that a child plays with, things that a child is exposed to, is very important in the education of a child. In fact, that's one of the reasons that the various animals seen around here today, the costumes, are all kosher animals, because that's what a child should be exposed to. Torah items, Torah toys, but 3 years old is where we begin a formal education. A child can begin dealing with letters, learning the letters, and begin their prayers, begin observance and practice. So 3-year-old is a milestone in the education, but not the beginning of education.
Beisrivka coming through. Beisrivka girls, get a hurry. Gentlemen up. Keita Bays. This is Keita Bays of Beisrivka. Each one has their own little cap. If you notice, everybody's displaying another one of the mitzvahs of the
waving to Lubavitch Rebbe, who is on the reviewing stand. The Rebbe doesn't take his eyes off the children. Completely focused on the children. The Rebbe's ability to establish a rapport with children is something that I have marveled at. As people get older, usually they have a difficulty relating to children, and the Rebbe is quite the contrary. He has always maintained that wonderful connection to children. He seems buoyed by the children, he communicates with them, finds a way to interact with the youngest of children.
Getting back to that upsharenish, there are times when certain things are forbidden to do. Is that not true? There's a time when you can have your haircut, but there are other times you're not allowed to.
Right, the cutting of hair is avoided from the beginning of Passover. According to some customs,
Goldberg is also
all the way
lost. He's
to
also
the holiday of
standing here.
Shavuot, excluding the day of Lag BaOmer itself.
What else? What other things are prohibited during that time?
During the time, there's a level of mourning, a minor level of mourning that's observed because of the passing of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva in the 2nd century. And such things as music is avoided, buying of new things is avoided, but all of this is suspended for this day of Lag BaOmer. Many prominent rabbis will be seen in the crowd, but all of them watching the children.
All right, kashrus still coming through. The cats are kashrus. Why am I not coming through now? Who's it? This is Jim, I noticed. Yeshiva. Out of Yaffa. Flatbush, out of Yaffa.
Everybody, tell us the Rabbi.
There comes another group of Beishtitz. All right.
The Rabbi.
Let's keep the knowledge.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Usually we have children participating in adult events. Today in this festival of Lag BaOmer, this parade is adults participating in a children's event. The children take the spotlight. They are the ones that have the opportunity to parade, march, demonstrate their pride in the Judaism that they study all year round in their school. Where?
Is that a television? Yeah? What channel?
Kitahei coming through. Kitahei of Beishtitz through. Kitahei of Beishtitz. Okay.
This broadcast that you're watching now, emanating from Brooklyn, New York, the headquarters, the world headquarters of the Lubavitch movement, is also being simultaneously broadcast around the globe, including the Soviet Union, where it's being seen in England, France, in Italy, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Australia, and in Israel. So throughout the world we are being unified in celebration of this event. A wonderful day, a celebration where the children can demonstrate their pride in Judaism, pride of what they have learned, what they have accomplished. Something which was inconceivable maybe 40 years ago when the Lubavitcher Rebbe took over leadership of the movement and turned these kind of events into a way of stimulating a pride in Judaism around the world.
Which way you take?
Here comes, keep it on, make Sifka, give him a hand. Keep it on the next ring to do. Keep Zion of Beisivka. Keep Zion of Beisivka, beautiful.
As the Lubavitcher Rebbe mentioned in his address to the children, a special commemorative coin was minted for this event. A silver coin which will be distributed to all of the children that participated, as well as to all the adults that are here. It's a silver coin, as the Rebbe emphasized, that silver was an important ingredient in the construction of the tabernacle and the temple. Many of the vessels which were used in the service in the temple and tabernacle were made of silver. And so it demonstrates the fact that here is a substance, a material, which can be used in many, many things, but is used for a holy purpose in service of God. This is then a symbol and a lesson for us that the material things that God gives us can be used in His service and should be used in His service. And that coin, as we saw a moment ago, will be distributed to all the participants here.
Well, let them get through first. Please do me a favor in front of our stand. Please clear the area here. Rabbi Schneerson, will you do a little work over there? Clear that area. Clear this area.
On the reviewing stand is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the leader of the Lubavitch movement, and his entourage, assistants that are there with him. The voice that you hear in the background announcing the various things going on is Rabbi Jacob J. Hecht, who is the Executive Vice President of the National Committee for Furtherance of Jewish Education, one of the sponsoring organizations of this parade
all of them
today.
are gallantly dressed and are proudly holding their colorful balloons, exclaiming loudly their beautiful names. And now starts the unofficial procession, starting with all of the Torah characters, followed by all their mommies and tatis, carrying you.
2 years ago, the Lubavitcher Rebbetzin, the wife of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, passed away. And since then, hundreds of children were given her name. And so there is a whole contingent coming past of Chaya Mushka. This is what you see in the carriages. These are all children whose names are Chaya Mushka, in the memory of the Lubavitcher Rebbetzin, the wife of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who passed away 2 years ago. Somewhere there should be mine too.
Oh, really?
I don't know if my wife managed to get her into this group, but
let's see if we can pick her up.
I have a mushka.
Everybody with more applause out there, come on.
As you can tell, the crowd is giving them a tremendous ovation.
There you go.
Okay, let's go.
That was fun. Watch it.
Can you imagine what will happen in the classroom when you've got a classroom full of Chaya Mushkas?
That will only be a problem if some of them are mischievous. If they're all good, they'll never be a problem.
They're all going to be perfect.
They're going to be perfect, of course.
Literally hundreds of children. Yeah, in Hurricane Yilbur.
How far do you think these people have come? Some of them from overseas, from Israel. There were a lot of people from Israel.
Well, we did see one youngster who was a winner of a Tivas Hashem event there that was brought here. We saw children from Montreal, we saw from Maryland, from New Jersey, from New York. So anyone that's within reasonable reach, I think, is here.
lot of the traffic here in the Eastern Parkway has been rerouted for this occasion.
When everything has been focused on the adults, this really turns things around a little bit. A focus on children and even on the youngest of children. Truly our future, our hope, and the pride that we have in all of our children is demonstrated here. And hopefully they will reciprocate and continue to give us the nachas, the pleasure of growing up with the ideals that we have lived for all of these thousands of years since God gave us the Torah at Sinai. She was frightened by a clown.
Could be. Or she's been walking a long way.
Hand ready, one room.
What group is this?
Bonnie, you deserve that over you in the store.
I think Pittsburgh, the girls coming through now. You see them at 8 in Pittsburgh.
The girls' yeshiva from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Next thing in Pittsburgh. Here comes the Chicago Seder. Chicago, Illinois. Okay, next, the Bobbitt girls from Miami Beach, Florida. Made it special for this parade. The Bobbitt from Miami Beach, give them a round of applause, special for Miami Beach. Hey, the only Torah from Muncie. Only the Torah from Muncie, sir. Muncie, New York. Yes, right. All in this one.
Miami Beach passing by.
Okay, here comes Menachem from
Look at those
Philadelphia.
tans, huh? Yeah. Year-round tan.
Tzivos Hashem of Philadelphia. That's a huge army. That army of kiddies.
Tzivos Hashem organization is the largest youth organization in the world. Around the world, there are over 300,000 children that belong to Tzivos Hashem.
How about a round of applause for them? Let's go! Jackal of Borough Park. That's one of the largest Yaakov in the United States.
Guarantee our Jewish future with Jewish education. That's signs being carried by children from Beis Yaakov of Borough Park.
Beis Yaakov of Borough Park.
As the children march past the reviewing stand, they then turn down Kingston Avenue. And down the street there are a series of scenes depicting Jewish events, historical events, in a very lifelike setting. So they get somewhat of an education going down the street, and ultimately end up on Empire Boulevard. And that's where all of the rides are set up, which will begin giving the children an even better time, starting from the end of the parade.
We'll have to go over there ourselves after the parade.
What do you want to take, a Ferris wheel or a roller coaster? What do you think?
Whatever you got. Whatever you got. I think I'll start with lunch. One of my favorite activities.
Say hello. Good.
Amongst the customs, food customs, like Bahomar, every one of our holidays has some food associated with it. Eggs.
Eggs are the food.
Yeah, well, the reason is that like Bahomar, as mentioned earlier, is the time to commemorate the end of the plague that broke out amongst the students of Rabbi Akiva. An egg is round. It's one of the foods of the completion of mourning, recognizing that things are always round. They happen in cycles. And even though at that moment it seemed that all of the Torah that had been studied by so many thousands of students and was going to cease to be, things turned around, and Rabbi Akiva was able to establish his school again and to rebuild the study of Torah.
They have Russian writing on there.
Well, this is a group of three that we saw some of them pass by earlier, friends of refugees of Eastern Europe. And they just did a cheer for the Rebbe, I believe, in Russian. Well, the Rebbe speaks and understands Russia, being a native of Russia, born in 1902 in Russia.
And he speaks a lot of other languages. He studied at the University of Berlin, engineering, and also he's a graduate of the Sorbonne in France. So he's fluent in many other languages besides Yiddish and Russian, and Hebrew. And
well, here's a group being led from Tzfat. If those of you who may know the geography, Tzfat is just across the hill, across the valley from Miron. You can actually see Miron from Tzfat. In Miron is the place of the burial site of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great scholar and rabbi that we're celebrating here today.
A tree full of mitzvahs. Next float.
Coming up. The sense of joy and festivity is clearly evident, and the Rebbe gave this group from Israel a ovation, and followed by everybody else in the crowd, and what an ovation they got.
That was a nice welcome, boy. They'll never forget that. A group from, as you saw many of these Russians. Let's go, there's a group of Russians. Give them a round of applause too, let's go. Okay, here comes Tidus Hashem from Rockland County. Tidus Hashem of Rockland County. Ellie, back to the music. Ellie, music.
For those of you that may have just tuned in, we're broadcasting from Crown Heights in Brooklyn at Lag BaOmer Parade, a special celebration commemorating the life of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a great 2nd century sage, close to 1900 years ago, who lived in Israel and was the great Kabbalist who wrote the major work of Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, the Zohar, the Book of Splendor.
This is the third annual Loch Bomer parade to be seen on satellite around the world. You're probably watching this on your local cable station throughout the world, and it's also going to Moscow, London, to Manchester, Paris, to Milan, Italy, to Buenos Aires, to Brazil, Melbourne, Australia, and of course to Israel, to the Western Wall in Israel.
The float that we're seeing now is a summer atmosphere done by Machon Chana Women's Institute. It is a school in the Crown Heights area for young women who are getting a late start in Jewish education, but nevertheless study full-time as students of Judaism. And just as the summer camp is a unique educational tool, while a child is free of rigid school year retinue, the camp creates a full 24-hour environment and atmosphere. A camp that embodies positive ideals and values can accomplish in many ways far more than a formal school schedule. The summer camp utilizes the summer months to reach the Jewish children by creating around-the-clock atmosphere that is permeated with the values of Torah and Jewish life. And that's what's emphasized on this float. Summertime is coming up, and parents should be aware that you don't just send your child any place where there is sports and some fun, but rather one that has an atmosphere of Torah, an atmosphere of Judaism. And they may acquire more in the summer months of Judaism than many years of schooling. So it may be a time of fun, but it's also a time of fun learning. As we see a challah slide, I guess you go through it somewhere inside, you end up on the you end up doughy on the other side, I guess. The challah slide.
How the entire spectrum of the child's faculties are harnessed.
Coming up is the
eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to know. This look represents.
This is the 40 years, commemorating 40 years of leadership of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, of the Lubavitch movement. Nosan Hashem Lachem, God has given you Leiv Ladas, the heart to know, and Nayim Lirais, the eyes to perceive, and Oznayim Lishmoya, and the ears to hear. This is the time that God has given you a new perspective on things. This was said to the Jewish people by Moses in the desert, and is being now repeated in reference to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the new inspiration, the new insight that we have of his leadership and continued devotion to his programs to spread Judaism throughout the world.
This float is built by the Beis Rivka schools in memory of Alta Mina Taita. And it represents children's education, where throughout the growth of the child, all their capacities are used. Among them, emotions, sight, hearing. Hashem has given you a heart to know, eyes to see, and ears to hear.
Yeshiva Institute of Queens coming through now. Yeshiva Institute of Queens, welcome.
Children are taught to utilize emotions to love and help fellow Jews, to read Jewish books, to see their parents in performance of mitzvahs, to light Shabbos candles, and they utilize their hearing to listen to Torah tapes, or to the blowing of the shofar, or to the reading of the Megillah.
Okay, here comes Chabad of San Diego, California.
San Diego, California, a city of sun. Maybe they can bring us some. But thank God the weather has been holding up. We shouldn't complain.
It's pretty good.
Seabreeze Jewish Center. All right, keep it moving, Janela. Yeshiva Solomoshe coming through now. Yeshiva Solomoshe.
This program of the Loch Bomer Parade has been continuing since 11 o'clock this morning. And the Rebbe has spent these 3 hours with full attention focused on the children passing by and parading, from little children in strollers being pushed by their mothers to children holding signs claiming their pride in Judaism.
And throughout it all, the Lubavitcher Rebbe has shept a lot of nachas, watching those children come by. He hasn't moved from his lectern. He stood there and waved and giving the kids a thrill too.
Okay, keep it moving, Kendall, keep it moving. A group from Muncie, but you gotta keep it moving, boys. Let's go. A group from Muncie, New York. Move it a little faster, Kendall. Move it a little faster.
A few umbrellas are sprouting. We're getting a few drops here.
We refer to that as Gishmei Bracha, as rain of blessing.
It's Mazel Dik, isn't it?
Mazel Dik, yes.
It's supposed to be Mazel Dik. What does that mean, Mazel Dik? Because people don't know what Mazel Dik is.
No, Mazel literally means good luck, but it's a sign. After all, everything that grows needs water. And so when it's raining, it's a sign that the things are going to grow.
Ellie, a little music. Keep moving, please keep moving. Keep the crowd going the other way. They're going the wrong way. What is this? Move them.
With a sprinkling of drops on the Rebbe's hat, but it doesn't seem to dampen his spirits any.
No, I don't think he notices it at all. I think that he's so focused on the children, so intent on communicating with them that he's oblivious to a few drops around him.
While they're going through, let me say, Mendel, Kaseel, Shento, Rizal, Kadana, Merkistan, Mishulavan for the Shas,
We're just coming with another mitzvah tank with some of the clowns on top of it.
This tank is a new Israeli mitzvah tank dedicated in the honor of the Rebbe. The Rebbe Shlita, 40 years of leadership of the Jewish people.
And of course to Cholider Baumgarten and to Shia Harley, especially Ashikaya for their wonderful job that they did on today's parade. Okay, after this comes a new mitzvah tank which is going to Israel. Please moving. Please keep moving. A special thanks to Beryl Weiss from California for his participation in this parade.
You're watching the concluding moments of the Bahomar parade from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York, where the Lubavitcher Rebbe is on the viewing stand. As the
40-year leadership of the Jewish people.
Final groups march past the Rebbe. Children with the carriages. After all, this is like Bahomar, a special time for the children. Showing off our pride in them and their pride in their Judaism. The mitzvah tank that is going to Israel is now passing by the Rebbe. It will be sent over to Israel and participate there in a group of, I believe, 13 or 14 tanks that already operate throughout Israel, bringing a message of Judaism to all over the place.
They're going to 1,000 settlements and cities throughout Israel that have been forgotten, fulfilling the wish of the Rebbe Shlita that no Jew will be left behind. 100,000 children also are enrolled in the mitzvah tank Tivus Hashem.
Until the moment that Rebbe Schneerson will take us all out of these.
This is the Shabbos year float.
Here comes the Shabbos year.
This is built by the Kavutza of Tomchei Tmimim, Lubavitcher Obevei Torah. Did I say that right?
Yeah. This year, the day of Rosh Hashanah, which was the beginning and the head of the year, occurred on Shabbat. And just like the head physically directs the body, so the year directs the whole person. So this day, the Shabbos day, really it's a Shabbos year because the beginning of the year was on Shabbat. And that's what we're emphasizing in this float.
Those main elements there are Chumash, Tzedakah. What are the others? I can't see them from here too well.
I would presume that we're dealing with a Siddur prayer book, a Chumash, which is the Bible. Those are the two books that we see in so large size floating around.
And there's a Tzedakah box.
Is this it? Okay, now the section heads, only the section heads. They're here already, okay? The Rebbe will give them these new...
The Rebbe will now be distributing to the section heads the commemorative coin that was struck exclusively for this event, a silver coin which commemorates Lag BaOmer of Tofshin Nun, this celebration of Lag BaOmer in the year 5750. A Shnas Nisim, a year of miracles.
Okay, hurry it up.
We're coming to you live on an international satellite hookup from Lubavitch World Headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York. My name is Les Nierenberg. I'm from Toronto, and I'm with Rabbi Shmuel Kaplan from Baltimore, Maryland. We've been...
We are witnessing a manifestation of his presence when the world can be brought together with modern media. This is something which the Rebbe also emphasized during his talk. This nature of the unification of the world, the being greater closeness developed amongst all the people, Sheves Achim Gam Yachad, as people sit in harmony and peace, which is one of the principal motivations of the Torah, the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great sage, whom we are celebrating today.
And through the past 40 years of activity in the Lubavitch movement, the Rebbe has brought in tremendous campaigns that have inspired Jews all over the world. He's also made excellent use of all media.